So how's it going, everyone? KingBlackToof here. So recently we saw several cards being shown, and I want to give my opinions and rate some of them, as well as there are ones that we've only seen the images of, and I'd like to give my opinion on speculating what they could possibly do. And hopefully I'm right, and that'll be a little challenge for me later on. So it's kind of split into ones that we do know exactly what they do and ones that we don't. And I might split that into two videos, but let's get started. And I'm going to start this video with the ones that we do know. So the first one that we're going to go over is the Crow's Eye card. Now this is a special card. It's bronze and neutral, which means you can have 3 of them. It's classed as being alchemy and organic, which is going to be very important later when we start to see who could pull this card, like elven mercenaries, herbalists, Ithleen, stuff like that. So it's very important those tags are known. Now, what this card does is it does 4 damage to the highest enemy unit on each row. So, like the Pirate Technician, 4 strength damage, 4 damage, 4 damage. But it hits the highest, which is really good because you're less likely to lose value like you are with a Pirate Technician if you hit like a Priestess of Freya. But then again, it's probably less likely to do removal because you won't hit something which is low. So there's pros and cons there. But it gets even better than that, because that's a nice 12 strength, but you can increase the damage dealt by 1 for every copy of this card in the graveyard, up to a maximum of 10. Now, it is worded slightly weirdly. I said it as it was written. I find it hard to believe that they think you're going to get 10 copies of this in your graveyard. So I'm actually thinking that it's more likely it's up to a maximum of 10 extra damage, which means that this does 4 damage, 4 damage, 4 damage. You've got 1 copy in the graveyard to do 5, 5, 5. Which is 3 out of your 10 extra damage. If you've got 2 copies in the graveyard, it does 6, 6, 6, which is 6 out of your 10 maximum damage. If you've got 3 copies, then it would do 7, 7, 7, which is 9 out of your 10 extra damage. Now, if you've got an 4th copy in the graveyard, I guess it would do 8, 7, 7. It's a bit weird there. But I think that's probably more likely because it seems so unfeasible to actually have 10 copies in the graveyard. So this can start to do some really powerful damage the more you use it, which is really strong because 12 is nice. 12 is nice damage for a bronze. Not too hard to get, a unit on each row. People generally do that by themselves. But then you start to do like 7 damage, 7 damage, 7 damage, which is like 21 damage, which is crazy. So I can see this card being really quite good. Now, a lot of people are going to experiment with this card, I think, just for pure value. Because like I said, it's not going to do removal very easily. Unless the highest strength is 4. But it's definitely going to be a powerful card to give you value over time. And I can start to see that Squirtle are really going to use this card quite well. Now, because if we go back to what it was, organic and alchemy, you're going to see that Ithleen is the main one that people are going to think about. But then she can't actually pull alchemy or organic cards. So Ithleen cannot use this, apparently. Which is very surprising because I think a lot of people went to Ithleen first so you can get more copies in the graveyard so it becomes more valuable. But that's not necessarily the case. Now, Squirtle have easy access with the Elven Mercenary, which pulls any special bronze card. This is a special bronze. Skellig could probably use this with the Herbalist because it's organic, which is nice. Vesemir can pull this. So these are the kind of factions and maybe the ways that you'll see it. Squirtle, I think this is definitely aimed at Squirtle a lot because they can use Sages to reuse it. And although it will get slightly weaker, you've still got the other copies in the graveyard. So you want to use them all first and then start saging to keep using them. But it will banish them. So it will get generally weaker, but it's still quite a good play. So I think this is going to be a really good card. I'd rate this quite highly as a card that is going to make some impact in the game when it comes out. So I look forward and also at the same time dread what this card is going to do. We'll see. So next we've got the golden neutral card Muzzle, and this will work very much like Treason without the requirements of it needing to be spying. But you can bring any bronze or silver enemy unit, which is 8 strength or less, over to your side. So this is worth 16 initial value maximum, 8 away from them and 8 towards you. So in that way you could compare it to Assassination. Anything you could steal with this, you could kill with Assassination and then deal 8 damage to something else. So I guess the value from this card would come from any value you could generate over time afterwards. So it's going to be really good in things like mirror matches, where you could steal something that's going to really help you a lot, like an Imperia Enforcer or an Imperia Brigade. because then you've got 4 and your opponent's got 2, and that could generate you a lot of value. But it is a gold slot, so you have to consider that in other matchups, you're probably not going to find that many things which is going to generate you a lot of value. There are some, you know, the Kidwani Siege support, the Temerian Drummer, you know, trebuchets and stuff like that, I suppose. But there's not an awful lot more. But you do deny them a card as well. So if you're trying to steal something that you think is going to be really integral to them resurrecting again and again, you can try and steal that. But as a gold card, there's a reason why Treason is not used very much. And I think this might fall into the same sort of area as that, especially since it's a gold card. You rely on your opponent's decks and what kind of things they're going to be throwing up. So I think it's going to stay around the sort of middle area, not overly used. It's probably definitely not going to go up to the top. Although I would like to just say, on the flip side, if meta decks start to become really, really, really popular, and like there's a lot of, say, Emir spies going around next meta, if that becomes really, really popular, then this might come in as a way to counter Emir spies when you're playing Emir spies, so that you can think. So it might, I think it would be kind of, you know, in the middle, not that good. But then when you get up to really top tier meta, it might spring into use again, because you kind of know what your opponent's going to play then. In tournaments, you can kind of guess what your opponent's going to play, because you'll know all the meta decks. But generally speaking, I think it's kind of a mid card. You probably won't use it very much, even though it is a little easier to use than Treason. It's also a gold card, which is quite valuable. So the next card we saw is the Scoia'tael bronze card, the Dolbuff Arna Swordmaster. Okay, 4 strength, agile. And this card, I think, is going to be really good. When it's deployed, it does damage equal to its strength. Okay, so effectively it combos well with Dragoons and the Hawker supports, basically buffing in hand. Now this card basically makes Bren, the silver card, obsolete. She's 5 strength and does the exact same thing. Does damage equal to her strength when deployed. So either she needs to get a buff to compensate, or completely changed her ability in the next patch. We don't know about her yet. But you do have to be careful with buffs in hand, because when you've got cards like this, when these cards exist, you can't allow buffing in hand to get too crazy, because it's effectively doubled when you buff these guys. So, you know, although you might not have to weaken the support, you do have to be careful in the future, which is kind of a bit annoying. But I think this card is going to be quite good. And the reason is because, effectively, like I said, buffs are doubled on this card. You get a lot of them. I think 4 strength removal, which is currently what it is here, which is worth 8 value at the minute, is not great, because not much that you want to remove of 4 strength. But, however, 6, 7, and 8 are the key figures that you want to remove, because then you'll get rid of Mahakam Marauders, Farseers, you know, all these engine cards, Imperium Forces, Imperial Brigades. So with 1 Hawker support, this will go up to 7 strength. Okay, so it will do 7 wounding, which is good, because then it can get rid of a variety of the engines, not all of them though. So that's a little bit of a shame that it can't reach 8 very easily with a tiny bit of setup. But I think they were going to be still very effective. Now, bear in mind that as an 8 value card on its own, it's not that great. But with 1 buff, it effectively changes it into a 14 value card. With 2 buffs, okay, that changes it into a 20 value card. Okay, but you do have to make sure that you calculate the fact that the 2 Hawker supports that you do are actually only going to be 6 value, aren't they? Because if you're counting the buffs here, then you can't count the buffs from the Hawker support. So there'll be 2 6 value cards and then a 20 value bronze here. But I think these are going to be really good for their variable strength. I'm going to rate them higher than average. And I think we're definitely going to see some experimentation with buffing in hand and these girls. I hope they don't go too good, because it's going to be really annoying to deal with more removal. But I think it's a good card. I do like it. So the next card is a card which I think is really good. It's a key piece, which I think will do wonders for Death Wish archetypes, maybe consume archetypes and stuff. It's the Slizzard, or Eddie Slizzard. It's a 3 strength bronze monster, agile, and its ability is to consume something from your graveyard, and instead of boosting itself by that value, it will summon another copy of that card from your deck. So it's a consuming card, which is great because you'll get ticks on your Neckers, you'll get ticks on Arrakis Behemoth and stuff like that. But I think it just fits in. It's very reminiscent of the Wild Hunt Navigators in that it's 3 strength and pulls more from your deck. It's also kind of a mix between a Reaver Scout and a Priestess of Freya. You need to have a unit in the graveyard, but then you pull another unit from your deck. So this will work really well in, let's say, consume archetypes first. If someone destroys one of your Neckers, locks it and destroys it, you can then eat it from the graveyard and bring out another Necker, which is really good. You could also use it on ghouls. So you've got a ghoul, it's gone into the graveyard, you'll eat it, another one will come out of the deck, and then you consume something big. Now, the problem is with some of this is that maybe you won't have things in the graveyard. You're probably not going to have a ghoul in the graveyard very early because you're not going to play them in round 1. You're going to wait for round 3 for that. But it's got really good potential. You can enable it with Ekimaras, eat something now, you know, and then you can use this on the thing that you consumed with the Ekimara. So I think it's a really good card. It's going to be 3 strength plus a bronze, so it's very much like the Navigator in that way, which is nice. A little bit of extra tempo with that particular play. And it also works in Death Wish particularly well, because with Death Wish decks, you do want to trigger your Death Wishes. You know, Rot Fiends, Archer Spores. I always found with Archer Spores that I never actually ever triggered them, which when they die, they do 4 damage to something. I never triggered them because I wanted them to keep jumping around. But what you can do now is use a Cyclops or use an Ekimara or Unseen Elder or something to kill the Rot Fiend, the Archer Spore or whatever. And then you can eat it in the graveyard with this to pull another one out, which is one of the main issues with that particular archetype, is that there's not enough thinning. You can't get the cards you need most of the time. And this is going to just work wonders for that. Okay, and it's especially work well in round 1 because you will be activating them with Cyclopses and stuff, which is really good. Right, there's one thing I've just got to mention with this card. I'm going to slip it in, is that this card is a Draconid, okay, which is really important for things like the Wyvern. Now, I don't think it's anywhere near enough to get the Wyvern into action, but we're getting there. This is the Draconid, and that means the Wyverns could start coming back, but doubtful at the minute, but it is worth knowing. So I really like this card, and I'm going to rate it quite highly because it's just a really nice piece for some of those archetypes which really struggle with getting some of the cards out, you know, that you really want. You have to kind of just rely on basic draws usually, but this will really help pull the cards you want. It gives you thinning as well. So I'm going to rate it like 7, 8 out of 10, which I know is just a new thing I've introduced now. It'll probably get removed, but I think it's just a good way of showing you where I like how much I like this card. So the next card we've got here is the Peasant Leader. Now, we've just saw a preview of the Halloween event, and this guy will act as one of your leader cards for one of those fights at least. But in the multiplayer version, he's an 8 strength silver neutral card. He's agile, and his ability is to spawn 4 1 strength cows, 2 to the left, 2 to the right. So they're all on the same row, which is a bit of a negative, but also a positive in other ways. And I believe those cows are beasts. So that's going to really help with harpies if they haven't got changed. I think it's likely they will get changed in some way, either reduced a lot or just not do that ability anymore. But effectively speaking, this is like a poor infantry, a silver version, more bodies on the board, but only 2 more strength over a poor infantry. So really, it's not really about his pure strength. It's about the amount of bodies he produces, how quickly he produces them, and the ability to combo certain pieces together. I mean, it's really going to be good to try it in monsters with Yennefer, Northern Realms with Odrin. You could try Nilfgaard. I think someone's going to probably try a meme Nilfgaard deck where you place this guy, and then you Emir him, and then you can hear him, and then you decoy him, and just keep trying to get loads and loads and loads. But it's really all about the amount of bodies he places on the board. It enables Commander's Horn by himself, so you could do this guy, John Natalis, Commander's Horn, and that's a really nice quick strength play, maybe a win condition in round 3. We've got easy access to Thunderbolt. It gives you good access to Full Moon Potions if you draw it with another card, so you could play this card and then draw a Full Moon Potion with a Vico Varo Novice from Nilfgaard, pull the Full Moon Potion, and you've got full access to that very easily. You could also do it with you know, I guess Elven Mercenary as well. So he enables some really quick and easy combos with some of the more powerful potions, just because, you know, he's quick. He's got a lot of bodies quickly, and that could be very important. But he is obviously weak to lacerate as well, as stamina forward, as well as stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting to see where he goes. I rate him reasonably highly. You know, 12 strength is quite low, but it's his access that is good. I do think this is quite a good card. I want to be a little wary because we have to see how cards are going to change, like the Harpy first. But it does seem to be quite an enabler of some of the swarm archetypes you might be going for, Northern Realms, monsters, and stuff like that. But we'll have to see how much removal people have, because, I mean, all the Northern Realms machines are going to have an easy time with this card. Lacerates are coming back in, Yennefer are coming back in, maybe Stammelford's not taken very much, but I'd say I rate it quite highly, but we will have to see how people deal with it. If it becomes too common, then removal will start to come back in. So the next card is one of my favourite cards to come in. Definitely the new top spot as one of the sexiest cards in Gwent. Move over, Vess. I had a good long look at this earlier. You know, for several minutes, I had a really strong look at it. And yeah, it's effectively a silver neutral card. It's the Mandrake, and what it does, it's basically Mardrum, but just a silver version. So where Mardrum used to reset and strengthen by 3, or reset and weaken by 3, this heals and strengthens by 6, or resets and weakens by 6. I think this card is going to pretty much guarantee a change in maybe Peter and Mardrum, in the fact that it heals if you strengthen, which is really important. Because it means that if you've buffed something, you can still use this card, but the heal won't get rid of the strength there. And I hope that changes to Mardrum too. But this card is actually going to be quite good. Now, it may seem boring, it's just a silver version of Mardrum. I don't know if there's a way to exploit it. You know, buffing up something in Skellige could be quite good, but if you're against monsters, it's quite dangerous too. Because 6 base strength is quite a lot. But it is also really good as a removal tech tool. You can get rid of Ran Warriors, you can get rid of Imperial Brigades, you can get rid of Enforcers, you can get rid of Ekimaras, you could get rid of some gold like Succubus, you know. There's quite a good amount of options here. I don't think many people realise that you can actually target golds with this as well. So an Unbuff series you can get rid of as well. So I think it's going to be a great tech choice for things that we've experienced now. Maybe not necessarily in the next patch though, but it's definitely got a lot of versatility. You know, you can use it. It's never going to be a dead card, although you may not get as much as you want from it usually. But I think it's going to be a really good card. I rate this really highly. In fact, you know, as a tech choice, it's a very good one. And I really hope it wiggles on its premium. You know, you've got to give me a bit of that. Give me a bit of vest treatment on it, please. I need it. I need it, man. I need it good. It's also worth noting that this card is an organic card. It doesn't mean the herbalists can pull it because they can only pull bronzes, but it's also doomed. So you can only use it once, so Squirtle can't abuse this card. But that is all of the cards that we know what they do. Now, there are cards which we have been shown the artwork for, and I'd like to speculate on them. I'm going to do that in the next video instead, though, but thank you for watching. You got any feedback, let me know. I may have missed some little nice, cool ideas for some of these cards. Can't wait to experiment with them. And thanks for watching. I'll see you again very soon.